We know it's not always easy finding passion and purpose. We know sometimes you can feel more overwhelmed than inspired. But we also know that connecting people to jobs that matter really matters to you. And that's why we're here for you. We know you need top talent to build your business, so we connect you to more than 33 million eager job seekers across the region. And we know strong relationships are essential. We speak your language.
Hello Job Street สวัสดีค่ะ Hello Job Street
and provide experienced local support. We also know you want powerful data and insights to empower you and make you look smart in front of your boss. We know while hiring is never simple, our innovations and products make it easier. From delivering better value for your investment to standing out from the crowd. We've got you covered. And we know you like results. We're 3 times more successful at placing talent with employers. How do we know all this? We're your hiring expert and the #1 trusted talent partner in Asia. Start hiring with us now. We know you want to.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the second of 3 webinars brought to you by Human Resources Online in partnership with Seek Asia. The business webinar series is to challenge your assumptions, talent acquisition in the post-pandemic era. Strip away the fancy offices, job titles, and perks behind any business, and you'll find that at the heart of a truly great organization, no matter how big or small, lies a passionate and dedicated workforce, all the way from the shop floor to the CEO's office. And all this comes down to hiring the best fit employees for each and every role. So recruitment today is no longer about paper pushing CVs. There's so much more to it. Companies are finally stepping up to the plate when it comes to consciously seeking diversity in their candidate roster. Meanwhile, COVID-19 has forced a complete pivot to virtual recruiting and remote onboarding. So today you can look forward to the following takeaways: how the recruitment function has pivoted to capture new opportunities such as virtual hiring, diversity in talent pools, and more. Secondly, components necessary for a pandemic-proof talent acquisition strategy, including what leaders on our panel are leveraging new possibilities in recruitment, such as virtual hiring, machine learning, D&I, and more. So also you can download the Decoding Global Talent Report for other great insights. And all right, again, let's get started. Again, I'd like to run through some housekeeping tips and tricks to make the most of experience with us. We will be having a panel session where I'll be interviewing 3 panelists, which I will introduce in just a moment. You can then look forward to a live Q&A session, and many of you have already pre-submitted your questions during the registration, so we'll be sure to bring those into the conversation. And for those who haven't, don't worry, please feel free to start sharing your questions right away. And you can do so by sharing your questions on the Q&A chat box on the right of your screen. Even better, you can vote for your favorite questions so it has a higher priority chance in getting answered. We did receive a lot of questions prior to events, so we'll put those up for voting. And also last month, we had a flurry of questions, so we will try to address as many of them as possible. So before we get into the panel session, right, and we're going to have a little poll session, but also before that, the most active participant has the chance to win an iPad iPro, and this will be, you've got to be based in Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong, Philippines, and Indonesia. And winner of the prize will be selected after the completion of the 3rd webinar, which is happening on September 4th during the webinar series. And the most number of questions, the poll, right? Our first poll question is, we would like to find out, what is your role in talent acquisition? Is it 1, decision maker, 2, are you an influencer? Or 3, I'm here to gain. Welcome our panelists. Okay, Asia as Seek, his task is to transform Asia's most successful job marketplace to the best career platform. Previously, he led Carousel in the capacity of Chief Commercial Asia for Property Guru as Chief Business Officer. So say hi, Louis, so we can hear you loud and clear. Next, we have Clay Johnson, Head of Human Resources Asia Pacific Swift. He has 20 years of global HR experience across
thanks,
North
Frida. Hello,
America,
everyone. I hope you all
Europe,
can hear me
and
well.
Asia Pacific. He's passionate about helping organizations achieve results through strong people practices. And originally from the US, Clay has called Kuala Lumpur home for the past 4 years. Hi, Clay. Last but not least, we have Chua Chai Peng, HR Director Experience. She is an experienced HR professional familiar with strategic and operational HR. She began her career in consulting before her foray into HR, and prior to joining Experian, Chai Peng was the HR Director of Mondelez Malaysia and is currently one of Talent Corp's diversity advocates. So hello to all our panelists. Okay, we're getting Chai Peng on. Right. Hi, everyone. Okay. So we've got the full crew. I'm having a look at the poll results right now, and it looks like yes, decision makers at 27%, influencers at 31%. I'm here to gain knowledge at 42%. So over 50% would be people who are decision makers. How has your organization pivoted its recruitment process to capture new opportunities such as virtual hiring, machine learning, and diversity in talent pools? Typing, get your mic on.
So, tests, right? It's done online, and we've got various technical tests as well that has gone online, and all this happened before the pandemic. So fortunately for us, we had already gone, pretty virtual in that sense. And therefore, when the pandemic hit, right, it kind of intensified the process, right? We just had to make sure that it was as seamless, because now, we couldn't do any face-to-face and all that. So, we just had to be more seamless, very fortunate. And also, when we went out, right, into social media, and all this happened before the pandemic, we had something called Video My Job. We would get hiring managers, and then, transitioning the hiring managers, right, to do a lot of all this pitching for talent had already been done even before. So they got used to it during the pandemic. So I think in that regard, I think for us in Experian, we have been very fortunate. And I said, and as I said, right, I think it's now during the pandemic, right, what else can we do, and without losing that human touch? And I'll come round to it, right? So let me just pass it on to Clay, to kind of pick up on probably where I left off as well. Yeah, thanks. Over to you, Clay.
Okay. Thanks, Chai Ping. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, HR Swift. If I sort of reflect back over this very difficult year, the highs that I can share are the fact that we were also almost entering. And then from there, I think the other points that I wanted to share was as we moved through as we started the pandemic, we were in the throes of really growing in several of our locations. And so our recruiters had to quickly figure out how to establish a virtual recruitment drive, which they did fabulously well. And it was a huge success. We were able to get people in, which is definitely a highlight. And as well on our employer branding, we've taken every opportunity over the past year in all of our locations to really sort of put our name out there and make sure that we're known in the market. As you all know, there's loads and loads of virtual sessions that are happening in different sectors and in different industries. And each and every opportunity we can to put ourselves out there, we're doing that. So those are my highs. I think the lows, sort of what Chai Ping was saying, just that human touch, not being able to actually see a candidate, have those difficult doing it virtually.
It's a bit like this webinar, right, where we have to do this virtually and then we have to deal with lags and not make sure things start
Hi,
happening.
I'm so sorry, everyone. I believe we are
Louis,
facing quite a few connectivity issues. Can I request everyone who's joining us for the webinar today to please refresh your screen? I believe we are facing rain all over Singapore, Malaysia, Southeast Asia. So, and we will continue with the webinar. So we will just give a 30 seconds pause for making sure all the delegates have been able to successfully refresh their screens.
Waiting for Clay. But I think as we wait for Clay, Louis, perhaps you could address this as well.
Yeah, sure, Freda. I think, from the business side, what I would say is the low is definitely the situation that we're in, right? That we're finding ourselves as we operate the business and try to find talent. And what makes it more difficult is that it's just very fluid, right? It changes all the time. There's no constant. So it's very hard to prepare and plan in that sense. And I guess that's why everyone is here today to learn from our experience. But on the positive side of that, the high is, working through this year and last year with all these uncertainties, it's been great to see, at least internally for us. We've been very flexible and agile on how we approach the situation, how we adapt new technologies, how we change our approaches, which is what we'll be talking about today. And it's also positive to see how candidates are also changing, right? Because they are also feeling the same thing and needing to adapt. So seeing that play out, at different paces in different markets, but nonetheless playing out, I think is a very big high for us all.
Right. Okay. So there is this this movement, right, of being a bit more active and all that, which is great, right? And I think that's the way we need to move as well, like the whole idea of digitalization. Now, Chai Ping, you managed to achieve a paperless and digitalized talent acquisition process experience as early as 2019. Wow, a little bit just in time. And then the pandemic hit, right? So how difficult or easy has it been to incorporate technology, and what ROI have you achieved? It's like, if you plan for the pandemic, Chai Ping.
Yeah, I had a crystal ball. We kind of decided that we wanted totally paperless. So I think I mentioned earlier, our e-offers, and a lot of our assessments and all that is paperless now, even before the pandemic. And so that transition, right, was obviously a bit more easy, right? When the pandemic hit, other challenges came into play. And then also we had spoken to our hiring managers, our line managers, and say, get your, video my job ready, right? Get your LinkedIn profiles ready, because we might even make you, kind of help us post, right? So that, we kind of cast our net as wide as we possibly can. And then, I guess we having that crystal ball, hopefully it still works today. But anyway, having that crystal ball just before the pandemic kind of made it easier. But also at the same time, our hiring managers, right, our interviewers really need to be very equipped, right, in whether, if we kind of transition from a face-to-face interview, because we still used to do it in the office, Jaya, right? And if you're going to get candidates looking, and then after the pandemic, so obviously ROI that I would think that, my hope, right? I haven't done, a real, kind of, I think the ROI on it was, not only do we win as potential employers, but hopefully, the candidates, experience, right? And time, traveling into the office and all that, right? Interviewing with us is going to be reduced, and then that gave them time back, right? Whether they're doing it at the comfort of their homes, hopefully, even before the pandemic, that would give them time back.
Clay, I don't know if you can hear us at least.
Figures on it, but
we can't.
Hopefully,
oh, okay.
Because
yes,
that was
in
one
time,
part I didn't
in time for my
before the
question.
pandemic,
Welcome back, Clay.
But maybe now in hindsight, looking
you
for a
see,
lot more data.
this is a great test.
And maybe
Okay,
should
now,
look at the ROI, right? Having gone
Clay, how has your experience been in involving the mindset of your recruiters, who've been used to face-to-face hiring and all of that changed to virtual hiring, in the past, I would say 1 year, but as 18 months, right? Has the average time to hire improved or declined during the pandemic?
All right, I'm really sorry about that. So our recruiter, well, let me take a step back. Prior to the pandemic, we actually had a hybrid model at Swift where we could work from home 2 days a week and be in the office 3 days. So our recruiters and our hiring managers were already sort of comfortable with, the virtual setup and interviewing and assessing candidates. I think where the tricky part is I felt that the mindset of a lot of hiring managers was, I need to see the candidate before I make an offer. And so we really had to sort of help them, by we, the recruiters, our HR business partners, to get them more comfortable with making those decisions about extending offers without ever seeing a candidate. So that probably was the tricky part for us, and our recruiters did it really well. In terms of time to fill, it actually was reduced because getting a candidate scheduled for a virtual interview is a lot easier than getting them to travel to the office where they have to potentially take time off. So our time to fill actually has reduced.
Right. So that's the positive in this, right? Right. So, Louis, we're bringing you into the conversation. What, in your opinion, is the most challenging part in talent acquisition that HR professionals should, spend more time on in order to manage hiring effectively now and post-pandemic, wherever that may be, whenever that may be?
Yeah, Freda, I mean, thanks for that question. I think, I would step back a little bit and think about it from the business context and then how it relates to hiring. I think one of the things that we found is that because of the current situation, it's employers or candidates are a lot more reluctant than normal of considering a new opportunity because they value, safety and stability and all of that. So change for many becomes a problem. And hence, it's become quite important that as a company, we've stepped back and thought about the value proposition of why a candidate should join us as a first step. So we've looked at things like, providing more flexibility, given that, in our latest research, 89% of people said they prefer to work in flexible environments. We've looked and upped our health benefits. We've really promoted culture and well-being and ways of working. So really thinking about what we offer, the product, if you like, and the value proposition has been quite important because we found that it's been more important to sell to our candidates.
Right.
And then that leads to, okay, what does that mean for talent acquisition? It really means, as we go out and proactively approach candidates or sell candidates into the role to get them interested, we've had to become very crisp and clear on the value for them to join us. And that follows through for us to be able to have good conversations in the first place. So I think that's been important.
Okay. So one of the challenges that companies are facing is combating high salary expectations. So what strategies have you implemented to cater for the overinflation of salary expectations, especially in specialist fields? I'm going to ask Clay this first.
Sure. So I think as a company, we do have our finger on the pulse of what the external market is paying. What are the going rates for roles and particularly specialist roles. And then we internally decide, what we're willing to do and how much we're willing to pay. But I'm going to echo a lot of what Louis just said, because our approach really is because we have a strong employee value proposition to offer, we put our employees in control of their careers. We do offer a competitive salary. We have a culture that's open, collaborative, respectful, and we prioritize diversity and inclusion. I think as an organization, we really walk the talk on all of those points. And so when we approach a candidate, we try to give them a holistic view of what it's like to work at Swift. And it's not just about the salary. Let me tell you about these other components that make it a really wonderful place. I think after that, if our selling skills have done their job, we're able to, get them interested. But at the end of the day, if salary really is the number one priority for a candidate, then perhaps Swift isn't the place for them. And that's okay. I think it's just really understanding what the priority is for the candidate and being able to address it as you move through the recruitment process.
Right. I'm looking at all my decisions in the work that I've done, and salary has never been the factor. It was always something else, right? What about an experience, Chai Ping?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo the gentleman as well, right? Be cannibalizing our own industry, right? Because, I can always go out and say, someone walks to Clay and Clay says, okay, I'm going to offer you 20% more at the root of it, right? So, the productivity and the ROI and the pay and all that will not kind of, it just wouldn't make sense, right? And it won't tally. Yeah. So I think to what Clay and even Louis was saying before, I think the focus now on experience is let's pay our people well and competitively, right? I mean, obviously there's so many, salary surveys and all that are available out there. Kind of do that and see where you want to peg yourself against the market, right? And pay them well, right? And pay them competitively. Now, on top and above and beyond that, one of the things that we are focusing on is actually culture and leadership, because we are putting a lot of effort into our leaders now to help them become better leaders, because you're not just going to be a manager, right? You're going to lead, right? And you're going to be leaders of leaders, right? So if you're going to be a leader of leaders, what do you need to do? So there's a lot of focus on that, because the EVP has to be compelling. It has to be strong. And I'm not a Google, right? So I can't compete with Google. I'll never be able to. I miss the culture. I miss the people. I miss the collegial. Relationships and so on and so forth. And also there are people who have left us and may not boomerang, right? And say that I think we just need to look beyond the confines of salary.
Right.
And benefits.
You brought up something very interesting, and maybe I'll bring it up later, because you talk about the culture and the whole experience, which some new hires have never had a chance to experience. Right, but we'll go into that later. Louis, your life cycle, your add-on to what they've just both said, while Clay returns.
So even if they want to think,
sure. I agree very much with Clay and Chai Ping on this. It is really more than about money. It's really, when you ask yourself, even, would you work for a job just for money if it's miserable, right? Or if it doesn't offer you any advancement opportunities? Usual answer is no. So it's really about thinking again the value proposition, what else you can offer to the candidates in the form of, we were talking about a way of operating and working, benefits, and even career opportunities and investments into the person, right? I think if the company talks about and acts out investments in individuals, and that's seen, then money's not always and most of the times the most important factor.
Right. I remember values for me was important. Like the company that I used to work for provided flexibility, and was and the whole there was something else, right, that attracted me beyond money as well. So welcome back, Clay. Okay, so another major issue that companies are dealing with is virtual candidate assessment, selection, and screening. So what are some best practices you're using to navigate this challenge and really filling a vacancy with the best possible candidate fit? I'm going to get you to answer this first, Clay, in case you disappear.
I'm like a ghost here. So there's a couple of things I wanted to mention here. So we actually hire a lot of technical profiles. We are a fintech, so it makes sense that we do. And we actually work with a company called Codility, and the online assessment that they have that we do for our technical, or we implement for our technical profiles. And then what that does is that once someone passes that assessment, then we know that they are qualified and they are probably one of the best candidates for our tech profiles. So that's helped us out tremendously. We've also made it a requirement that all of our hiring managers go through an unconscious bias training, so that when they are interviewing candidates, they're really focusing on the knowledge, skills, and abilities of each of them and nothing else. And then finally, we do a candidate experience survey. So whether the candidate is selected or not, we do ask them what their experience was like. And then we try to take that feedback and sort of iterate our selection process so that we are improving it and really bringing those candidates in so that we can set ourselves up to hire the best candidates.
Right. An experience typing?
Yeah, so very similar to Clay. You know, our as I said, our technical tests, you know, assessments and all that have also gone online. But one snare, right, that we have to keep in mind is my team. One of the we have to watch out for is I've just heard, you know, candidates now have proxies and they do lip syncing. Right, and you're not getting the real candidate in front of you. Right. So I think we have to put in certain safeguards to say that, you know, you can't have like kind of flash in your face when you're interviewing with us, and then we try to get supporting. Right. You know, like if you are interviewing for this role and that phase on whether it's on your CV, you have to prove to us that you are actually coming for the interview, because we've come across cases where
I don't know if I want you to elaborate a little bit on the creativity that we come up with,
they've just gotten
or not. Maybe
a
you can share example of how
creative, right? And in a very competitive market, fortunately, it may not be the markets that, you know, not in Malaysia, but probably elsewhere across the region. I think we just have to be a bit more mindful. Now we've gone online, right? Almost, I mean, 100%. With I would maybe call that out. I will find some talent to stick with the actual candidates for the candidate that actually going for, and making them look in these and I think people will get more creative because in a virtual world, people can get more creative, right? I think that's something that you know we should all watch out for. And so especially in a very competitive
there's a lot of cleverness in this, right? This is online coaching that's happening. Like right now, there's someone actually teaching me how to do this, right?
I was very surprised, right?
Okay, Louis, right? Along the same lines, right? More and more organizations are now looking to hire overseas candidates, sometimes having to do so without an overseas entity. Would you be able to share some advice on the best way to approach this dilemma of overseas hiring?
Yeah, so Frida, I heard a little bit of overlap. I hope you're hearing me okay. You know, I think, you know, with overseas hiring, there are quite a lot of things that you need to consider, especially if it's the first time that you're looking at doing it. You know, several things that come to mind are legal regulations and challenges, right? Each market sort of operates in a different way. So if you don't have experience hiring in that market, first of all, I think it's important to maybe think of getting someone specialized in your team to look at those markets, or use specialist providers that look for things like, you know, global insurance policies, payroll, you know, how to structure and enable your company to do that, I think is one. And then there are also, from the product perspective, i.e., how you're going to engage with global and overseas talent, you've got to really think about how you're going to operate and the value proposition. So things like, you know, varying time zones, if you're looking in different time zones, collaboration tools to enable that, You have to consider things like pay disparity. The same role in different markets is quite different. So how do you think about that? Because there's no one answer for that. It depends on your company's philosophy. Cultural differences, right? You have to consider when selecting which markets to go to, because clearly different markets have different cultures that may or may not fit in with your operations. And in general, just understanding different legal responsibilities in each market, I think, is important. So those are things that definitely you should be considering as you go and look for overseas and remote hiring for your business.
Okay, just a few more questions before we get to the Q&A. Chai Ping, looking back, is there something you would do differently in approaching your talent acquisition evolution journey? We know you have a crystal ball. Okay.
I'm not so sure if the crystal ball is still working, but anyway, I was thinking about it, and I said, if there's something, that I would have done differently, it's probably just have more time because, the last 18 months has been honestly very painful for many of us, if not all of us, right? And that time I thought, I could care, right? And they had, I know my team put in a lot of effort. I wish, I had more time looking back, amidst.
What about you, Clay?
Other conflicts.
Yeah, so I've thought about this question as well, and I think that, it hasn't been an easy journey, but I do believe our team has come to grips with it and have done a really phenomenal job of getting us to where we are today. I would probably just call out one thing, and that's on the employer branding. I know I mentioned earlier that, we've been doing quite a bit during this pandemic. I sort of wish we had done more prior to the pandemic so that we would be able to spend more time with candidates, engaging them. Even though we're also having to play catch up from a period of time of not doing employer branding. So if I could go back several years, I would do that so that we're not spending a lot of time during the pandemic on that particular point.
Right. Okay. Final question before we open the floor. Right. Okay. So to end things on a positive note, if you had a magic wand and you can do any one thing to find the best possible candidate to business, what would you do? And think big. Louis, I know it's we'll get you to answer first.
This is a really interesting and hard one, Frida. So I think if I were to think big, if we were able to wave the wand and have an abundance of candidates in hard to find areas, I think that would be awesome. Reality, that's not going to happen. So I think, being able to provide the right skill sets and education to get the general population of candidates up so that we are able to have more of an abundance of candidates that are short now, I think would be fantastic.
Right. Clay?
Yes. So if I have to think big here, which is what you said, and wave the magic wand, my burning desire every day at Swift is to make us one of the top employers in Asia and across the globe. And I feel like if I could wave the wand and make that happen, then we probably would be able to easily attract talent to the company.
Okay, thanks, guys. We're going to open the floor for questions. We've got lots of questions. I'm going to go with the one with the most number of votes. But before that, maybe I just want to get things flowing, right? Being in a work from home setup, having local talents, right? What would fast track the recruitment process from a recruiter? Being used to face-to-face hiring process. And I think we sort of addressed that earlier on, but this was a question that came in earlier. What would fast track the recruitment process? Chai Ping or Clay, any of you would like to address this?
Chai Ping.
Yeah.
I think, so during the pandemic, there was a bit of a lull. So what we did was we did talent pooling, and we kind of sat down and said, what do we need in the business, right? And now that, hiring has kind of ramped up, the team has, they've got pools of, because they've put their feelers out there as well. And they've already got pools of candidates. So I think that has expedited our time to fill, time to accept, and so on and so forth. So I think we were a bit more ready, right, when the job market started to heat up. So I think, you know, that has helped us. So that talent pooling, that pipelining, and that market sensing piece. So we've done that. But obviously, you know, the market is evolving.
Right.
The talent landscape is evolving. The business is evolving, right? And the
ahead,
pandemic is.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, from our perspective, in order to fast track, really, what we've tried to do is make sure that our hiring managers and our recruiters are fully aligned on timelines, so that there's not sort of a lag between, you know, when a candidate has been identified to when the hiring manager sees them to when an offer is made. That it's very clear, so that we're, you know, working off the same page and there's no gaps in the process.
Okay, so this is a question from Florida S. Quilates. She says, how do we address productivity issues during the pandemic when employees are working from home? Any suggestions from anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll share my view. You do have to be flexible, because people are dealing with things at home, you know, that you may not see on camera or when you're engaging them as your employer. So there has to be, you know, quite a bit of flexibility. I would always say manage by deliverables versus managing by I see you at 9, I see you leave at 5:30, and then be able to, you know, communicate and open up with the employee and to say what works best for you, what are your constraints, and let's, you know, work around those together. And so it may mean that someone starts early or ends late, but that, to me, the flexibility is absolutely critical.
Right. Okay. We have a question here from Shivi Mittal. I'm hiring CXO people for startups in Southeast Asia and find it difficult to source a pool of candidates. What are the best sources to reach candidates and tips to have maximum closures? Anyone? Chapping, Clay?
Well, I would say the first thing is look at partnering with Seek Asia and the product offerings we have, just as a standard first answer to that question. But I think, you know, we spoke a lot earlier on being able to articulate and sell the company or the opportunity up front is becoming more and more important. So being able to do that, I think, is still very key. And I guess the more transparency and information that you can give to both sides of the party, if you're recruiting as a recruitment firm, I guess, the higher the chances are of success to close. So working on conversion and providing quality over quantity for CXOs in this limited environment, I think is probably the trick.
Right. We've got a question here from Kin Hong, Lee Kin Hong. It says, employers are keeping costs low, thus increment is not significant. More like a pay cut. That's where I've added. Some are below market value, right? So, wait, the question just popped at the top. So what are ways of staff retention that can be adopted to keep them? That's a good one. Chapping?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. I'm also nervous about responding because I'm looking at the chat box here. I think I'm creating probably, you know, I don't lag or overlap and all that because I'm just getting, you know, but anyway, I'll take a stab at this, right? I think, as I said, right, you know, every individual, I mean, and pay is a very emotional kind of issue. I mean, we are, you know, we are salaried people as well, and often, you know, you think, oh, we're underpaid, you know, I do so much and so on and so forth, right? But I think, you know, I also challenge myself. I'm an employee as well, and I kind of say, okay, what is it that you're getting now that you are happy just beyond that? Are you competitively paid? Then you go, okay, so tick the box. You know, do I have a great culture? Yes, tick the box, right? Do I have a great team? Absolutely. So tick the box again, right? So I think we just need to look beyond just, you know, again, the salary and the benefits and all that, right? As I said, you know, you know, and I think we had this conversation earlier as well, right? If assumptions or you verified your data, and rather than, you know, wallowing and kind of, you know, in that sort of negativity, I would encourage you if in a different place. Then maybe take that
Right.
personal and it's an emotional,
Clay, did you want to
issue,
add something to that, or anyone
Yeah, I would
else?
just, I would say, if you've identified your top talent in the organization, and those are the people that you really want to work hard to retain, and if you're not able to offer them an increment, you need to look at what opportunities you can provide to grow them and to develop them, because a lot of them, of course, can go out and get paid elsewhere. Think about the opportunity that you are giving them to develop.
I think, like, for me as well, just a decision to leave and a decision to stay was, am I still growing here? Right. And I think that is a big, and if you have a company that promotes and encourages you to grow and learn, that's one of the things. Well, okay, another question here from a guest. What employer branding initiatives are you pursuing now? And I guess it's interesting, right? How are you doing employer branding? Louis, you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Clay mentioned underinvestment in employer branding. I would say that we're probably in a similar situation. We've been focusing much more on the product, our company, and what we have to offer, rather than communicating it as broadly as we should, I guess, which we're starting to do. I think from an employer branding perspective, after working on the value proposition, we've really started to equip our talent acquisition teams and our employees with the spills and the pitches and the ways that we should talk about our opportunity to external people. So it's really using our own employees as a voice for employer branding. But I think there is definitely opportunity to do more, sharing tips through articles, social media, PR, and all of that. Which are still quite relevant even in these times.
Right. Organizing webinars.
Yeah, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
Frida, can I just say something very quickly just on what Louis said, right? I think that hyper collaboration, right? Get a very credible partner, and obviously I'm going to sell SIG today. Get a very credible partner to work with you, right? And I think the new age and the age that we live in today, you can't do it alone. It's just almost impossible, right? And that co-creation, the hyper collaboration.
Can I just add a couple points there? I also think that employer branding, and this is to piggyback on what Chai-Ting just said, that employer branding is not just the responsibility of HR. It's for the whole company to really be able to go out and sell, who we are, what we do, and why it's a wonderful place to work. In terms of what we're doing on employer branding right now, we're focusing a lot of attention on building the relationships with universities in different locations where we operate, really to sort of get our foot in the door and try to build up some talent pipelines of people coming out of universities. So, for example, last weekend we sponsored a hackathon at one of the universities here in Malaysia, and it was quite a big success. So.
Right. Okay. This is a question specifically for Clay. It said, as most workers, 80% prefer to work from home and flexible environment. However, for the last 2 years of the pandemic, in our organization alone and with our clients, people have been leaving because based on exit interviews and observations, they get bored working at home and couldn't manage separating home and work. So some just got busier with leisure activities like plants or gardening or cooking and simply quit their work. What is the real score on this?
I don't understand the question.
Yeah. So, so people are bored, because of this working from home, right? As well. So, is there a way that we can counter this? I would think it'd be a good thing that I could work and still do gardening. But anyway, but people feel that they're bored and not challenged.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's a personal preference. So if you are bored and that's not working for you as a colleague, I mean, as an employee, then you need to find another, a place that you can go back to an office. I'm not sure I'm answering this very well, but yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'll just add to that. I think with the use of technology, what we are doing at SEEK is we're trying to still create the environment where you can, let's say, mingle. You still have your town halls. You still have your sort of family Fridays or fun days on to get everyone together. You have your virtual team building now. So there's a lot more investment in how do you bring the team together, because what we found is that when people say they miss the office, part of it is they miss that interaction with the teams. So trying to compensate that by virtual means is something that's important. The other one is really just education and training on how to be mindful to think about how you plan your workday in this new environment. You mentioned that you're in the computer and you don't know when to switch off because you're at home, which is true. It's true for many.
Right.
That actually requires some training and enlightenment that's happening for people to change behaviors. So I think everyone's learning to work in this environment, but it's important to be proactive with each other to help.
A question here from Tot Sapol Kitrang Sikul, which I thought was very interesting. During this crisis, can you share your opinion when the talented candidates ask us for job security? I don't know if you've ever been, have had that experience or where people still expect job security.
Yeah, sorry, Chai-Ping, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Clay, and I'll jump in. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I can talk specifically here in Malaysia as an example, because what we saw in the early days of the pandemic is that were a lot of companies around us that were retrenching employees. And it was scary for our own employees about their own job security. So as a company, we really had to come out and say, very clearly, we have no intention to retrench. And it was over communicating that message. I mean, we had to craft it carefully because we can't say full stop, you are promised a job, but we genuinely did not have an intention. So I would say the communication there was really key, and being transparent about what was actually happening.
Yeah. So I've refreshed, and hopefully there's no overlap. Sorry again for the technical, glitches. So similar with us, we actually at the start of the pandemic, we came out and we said, absolutely, we're not doing any, restructuring in that sense, or any realignment, and we came out, to say, and our global CEO said that, it's a people first approach. So we are doing everything that we can, right, to cut costs on everything else except our people. So we did that, and it was that over communicating that Clay talks about. We came out again, global, region, local, and then and to teams as well. And then we told our managers and leaders and said that please continue to message the same message, people first approach. And we came out, on the other side, hopefully stronger. We did not do anything drastic, during the pandemic. And I remind people, it's interesting, during the pandemic, we still had bonuses. And now that we're kind of hopefully slowly coming out of the pandemic, we've got increments and bonuses, and no one's salary was cut, right? So I think it's that reassurance, because good times or bad, talent will go away, right? And therefore, even more so in a crisis, we have to give reassurance to our talent, to give them, the confidence that, we are here for you as well, and we want you to stay with us, right? And we'll tide through this together. Yeah. Right.
And I think a very clear message from you, which I think is communicating, right? Whatever it is that's happening in the organization, communicating. I think it's when you're kept in the dark that gets people confused, right? It's just like when you communicate and the same messaging goes out and you hear it over and over again, and that gives a kind of assurance. And, I'm just going to be cheeky here. There's no such thing as job security. Even the Prime Minister of Malaysia doesn't have a job. Okay, moving on. Moving back onto the topic at hand. This is a question that came earlier, right? How can you measure the commitment of the applicants these days? How do you measure commitment?
Can I start, gentlemen?
Yes.
I'll start because I had a very interesting case very recently as well. I mean, we had this fantastic talent, and it was a very, very niche skill. I won't say anything more than that because I don't want to kind of let go of his identity. But anyway, he's so we had chatted with him for a bit, and I said, look, it's a niche skill, and I think we've priced him, and packed him well against the market as well, and so on and so forth. And then he came back probably a week or two just before, and he says, I think I've got a better offer, and I think that I might, and he had, signed our offer and all that. And we are like, So I said to my recruiting lead, I said, what do we do here, right? I mean, this was a hard to find skill and all that. But I made the decision. I said, look, I'm not going to, counter offer for the simple reason I just can't cannibalize our own industry. I think we should build talent and we should bridge talent, but we should not cannibalize. So I went out and said to him, look, and all the wonderful things and all the EVP and all the stuff that he's going to do if he joins us. But anyway, I said, it's your call. 2 days later, he came back and said, I'll join you because, I think that the journey has been great. The candidate experience has been great. Your value proposition has been very compelling. And I think there's a lot of conviction. So I think, if you've been honest and sincere from the beginning, I think, that buy-in process, right? During the candidate journey, they would have already been sold into you. And when they come on board, they would, in my mind, right, half the battle is won. And I like to think that they're already committed to us, right? Because we had already given that trust. And trust is not just earned, but you have to give that trust first to get trust back in return. Yeah. So I'll pass on to the gentleman, please.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think sort of setting expectations up front with the candidate about, and I mentioned this earlier, here's our timeline to fill this position, and asking the candidate as well, are you considering other opportunities? Are you currently on the market? And having that as a sort of a consistent question throughout the process where you're keeping the candidate warm, you're engaging them, are you still interested? But I think that the recruiters and the hiring managers need to be in lockstep throughout this process so that there are consistent messages going through the candidate experience from, when they click on the, apply job to when they meet the hiring manager to the offer stage, that there is just this experience where the commitment, as you said, Chai-Ping, that you won half the battle there. So that's what I would add.
Right. Okay. I've got a question here from Erin. It said, with the current new norms, hybrid working, how do you engage with new hires, with other employees? And I just want to add on to that because that's a personal experience, right? Where we've had hires coming in during the pandemic and they've never been involved in the culture, in the formal and informal networks of who do I reach out for help, right? How do you keep that swift experience, seek experience when they've never physically met their clients, and to keep that culture going, right? Who would like to take that first? I'll Clay.
Okay. Well, I think there's a number of people involved in that. So HR definitely has a responsibility in sharing what the culture is, what the expectations are. And it starts before the employee joins us, actually, before their first day, and really setting up an onboarding program for them so that they do have those touch points where they know who to go to. They have a buddy on day one that works with them through this process. Their manager has a role to play in it. So our HR business partners really sort of work closely with the teams to make sure that, new hires are being integrated into the organization, as effectively as possible. It doesn't sort of remove the face-to-face interaction that we would like the employee to have, but that will come in time. So let's just make the best of it until we can get to that point.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll jump in. So very similar. Our onboarding process is automated, is personalized and automated. The buddy knows what to do. The managers know what to do. The buddies have a checklist as well, right? So it's a checklist, and HR will kind of clamp down and say, hey, have you done this? Have you done this? And my own team, right, from my TA partners to my HR business partners and all that, right? Before, during, after. It's a very seamless process, right? And there's even more care now, right? More effort now. And I hear my team telling me now, Chai-Ping, can you please meet this person? Chai-Ping, can you meet that? I almost never get asked before, but now even more so because we put a lot of care. And something that I want to stress, it's virtual empathy as well, right? And people, I challenge people if people say that, I can't show empathy in a virtual world. I can't build that sense of belonging in a virtual world. I'll challenge that. I will challenge that. And then after that, I think similar to Clay, we've got the checkpoints as well. 30 days after you join, 60 days after you join, 90 days after you join. So it's a very robust, and we keep it alive, right? It's not just we've done it and we don't care. So it's very robust. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, I'll just echo that. I think for us, we just have been even more deliberate in doing all of the things both Taiping and Clay mentioned. For us, we have a whole 1 month onboarding process, which is really scheduled and structured, and I think that does help. And coupling with, I guess, all the virtual team building and bonding, bringing the culture in and infusing it that way, I think.
I love Taiping, the virtual buddy. That's the first I've heard of it, and I think that's so important, right? Someone to virtually hold somebody's hands along the way, and I think that's great. And virtual empathy, that's also something that we should take into consideration. We've got a bit of time left. I'm just gonna ask one more question here, and okay, let me see. Let's look for candidates, Richard, based on industries. Okay, I guess maybe I want to close off. With what do you see? What are your plans moving forward? Maybe in terms of what HR can do, and if you can give advice to other companies, big or small, what they should be looking out for. I'm going to start with Clay and then Lewis, and then I'll end off with Taiping because she's got the crystal ball, so she could, the sage will give us the last advice. Clay first.
All right. So, I mean, for us, our biggest priority is getting through this pandemic and getting people back into the office and, having our hybrid model of, spent time in the office and working from home. And I think with that, there are going to be challenges. There's going to be difficulties, but HR has a massive role in making people feel safe to come back, but it doesn't stop there. It's really once they're back in, making sure from a psychological safety point of view that they are also feeling like they're okay and that they're being looked after. So for me, that is the top priority for the next, I would say, 6 to 8 months.
Right. Louis?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I mean, rather than focusing so much on acquisition, although it's important, it's really about the retention of your existing people and making sure that we're looking after them. So echo what Clay said.
It's wise sage.
No, so the white crystal ball. I think the story is really we are not alone in this, right? Have we then gone out and make more connections and stay more connected? Have I would I kind of now talk to Clay and Lewis and say, hey, what else can we do? Have I talked to my peers in the industry? And I think I'm optimistic. I remain optimistic despite whether the Prime Minister has job security or not. But anyway. So I think for me is making sure that learning from the pandemic, going and hopefully coming out of the pandemic fairly soon. That whole human experience, right? Whether it's candidate experience or employee experience, but that whole human experience. And the whole well-being piece. I think Clay talks about psychological safety. I think that whole well-being space is not just your mental, your physical, but also your social, your spiritual, and your financial as well, right? So we have launched this big well-being program in Experian, and that covers almost all aspects of well-being. So I think going into that and making our workforce more resilient, right? So that we're more prepared. Ahead of the next crisis.
Right. Yeah, right. There's one, every day right here in Malaysia. Thank you so much, for spending time. For me, the key takeaways, right? I would have to say, the virtual empathy, over communicating, right? And it's I guess getting people on board is beyond financial. There are other things as well, and then and to continue with this journey. And we've got the vaccines, and so let's be optimistic about things. So thank you again, Clay, Taiping, and Lewis, and thank you everyone. And we do apologize for the lag. This is we love to do a live event, but here's the reality. Our third webinar will be happening on the September 14 on another crucial topic, which is upskilling and reskilling. And if you have more questions, please go to seekasia.com and visit the employer's blog. Remember, you also have a chance to win an iPad Pro if you attended any of the 3 webinars. So make sure you attend the one on September 14. We also have a survey for you to fill. You can see the link to the survey. Please head on over there and give us your feedback so that we can make these sessions more beneficial for you. Once again, thank you to all the panelists and everyone joining us virtually for being with us today. We do appreciate the time that you have spent with us. We hope this session has given you some HR insights, as this is a crucial component in any organization, and a reminder that you can download the Decoding Global Talent Report to get more insights. And I'm sure the team, I was reading that some of you have problems downloading. I'm sure the team will be in touch with you on how you can get hold of that. I look forward to seeing you again next month. And until then, have a wonderful rest of the day and stay safe.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Louis. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.